quantum drive's one of the bigger components, especially if we then take the extra 50% that's needed for the jump drive.
The jump drive as well, yeah.
Like if you actually look at the interior of the centre body, there's no space left in there. It's so thin because of, like, and then you've got fuel in there as well.
You got, stick it on the back,
Makes the ship bigger.
Makes it bigger.
Fits less places.
Carry it out the front in little arms. Right.
Well, we could just reuse the ones from the mule, right?
Yeah, mule arms. That works. Yeah, or quantum ring.
Not like the ones from Star Wars.
Star Wars ring.
So, my issue with doing, because I saw them talking about that on Spectrum, my biggest problem with that would be how would they get them? So, if you think about how big that is compared to the actual fighter that Obi-Wan uses, like, how would you get that into a position to be used? Because they're big, and so for argument's sake, that thing itself would also then need everything it needs to power it, because we can't put a quantum fuel tank in the ship, because why would there be a quantum fuel tank in the ship? Means that would need quantum fuel tank, it would need its own power. Granted, it would work, we could do it from a tech standpoint, but like, how would you ever get in position? And then once you've done your jump, what do you do with it?
So you need a big cannon that fires.
Yeah, big slingshot on the planets.
Drake catapult.
What if we just move the whole body forward, and then we've got more space at the back?
Oh, put the wings further back.
Yeah, so the canopy front could align with the front of the wings, and it's just like straight up.
How can you say that as an artist with a straight face?
It's just not painful.
You just have to then make every other ship bigger to then fit the Fury into. Now
But the UK, sure, that's a scale every ship up 20%, right?
That's fair.
No.
Is it the whole idea? Your argument is that the quantum drives are too big. But don't we determine how big the quantum drives are?
I don't think it's that they're too big. It's snubs play a very particular role within the game. They're not designed to be used as the same as fighters, but that's why fighters are bigger than snubs. They're supposed to be as small as possible to be able to take them into much smaller environments, and they're cheaper to operate, maintain, and run because you don't have to have everything to support the quantum drive. Yeah, well, not disposable because I mean there's a person inside of it.
I was going to say.
Disposable as well. It's cheaper. It's cheaper.
Yeah.
Like it's the same like conversation I've had with people in the past where they're like, oh well, why would you not just use the best ship to do something? By best being like the biggest ship, whatever. If I was doing a pizza delivery in my local neighborhood, I'm not going to do that pizza delivery in a tank.
Yep.
I'm going to do it a little Vespa because the fuel costs, right? But if I'm having to do it...
I'm going full in there.
Purely down to
down the road.
Way to get views on YouTube.
But like, if I'm doing it in a much more dangerous environment, I'm not going to do it in a little Vespa. I might do it on a vehicle, right? So it's about bringing the right tool for the job. So once again, snubs, they serve a particular purpose and role within the universe. They're not designed to compete on the same level as fighters at everything. But that's why fighter is its own category compared to snub fighters.
Yeah.
So why is it cheaper to run about in a Caterpillar than a Kraken?
Well, it'll be cheaper on the Caterpillar than the Kraken because we're talking capital grade components and the maintenance of them will be much, much higher. Granted, it's not something people massively have to worry about at the minute, but like eventually you're going to have to repair them and it's all the costs and fuel to operate. It's going to get much worse.
Fair enough.
Don't give them that. It's BS. You decide how big the components are, and if you want to put one on there, you will.
If we can decide how big the components are, why don't we just make them all tiny and have them be flying?
That'll make Alberto so much happier.
It's just a seat strapped to as many engines as we could find. So we can just leave it.
I mean, that's basically the Fury, though, right?
That's
It's just like a seat with everything else strapped behind it.
Taking it to as much
wings
of
to look cool.
an extreme as we can right now.
Yeah.
All right, John, can we make all the components only 2 centimeters big? Cubes, right? All identical, this big.
I mean, on the plus side, that'll make the doors a hell of a lot easier.
Think how many components we have to redo.
I remember back in the day we talked about having like the vehicle, ship components and vehicle components, and then like suit components that were going to be like SD card style, like. That's what you need.
Oh my god!
You could fit vehicle components on
Suits.
mechs.
That's why Corey's carrying around his car's air conditioning at the moment.
I would tell you the same thing I tell the narrative team. You're all just making it up. Just make it up so it works.
When the narrative team make it up, that makes the rules. When everyone else makes it up, we just make stuff up. But they have the right to go, we just made it up, but that's now fact. Because they're the narrative team.
Until they change it.
Yeah, no, they're quite good at that, aren't they?
You ready to start the show?
Sure.
Go on.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to, what's the name of the show? Star Citizen Live, the Invictus, 2953, all ships, Roundtable, and
It's not round.
Triangle table.
Triangle Table.
Is it trying?
Well, technically, it's actually a hexagon.
Kind of like a shovel.
Because technically,
Number of sides.
hold on, technically, there's the three sides, and then there's the other three sides that are shorter, and then that's 6, and then there's these ones that are 7, 8. So I guess it's actually an octagon. It's just very weirdly shaped. Yeah.
Long now.
As you were saying.
We got there.
I'm here by myself today. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and we're in week 2 of Invictus, the yearly celebration and event based on the military vehicles of the Star Citizen universe. Joining me on the show this week is an esteemed panel of vehicle experts and Corey Bamford. Starting to my left, we have...
Done him there.
Immediate straight on Corey. He's sitting there minding his own business.
Why are you coming at me like this?
Can we at least pick on Dan?
You're getting picked on today.
Fair enough.
If you haven't figured it out already, it's going to be one of those shows. Joining us to the left, Ben.
Thanks, good, yep.
Ben, tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
Ben Curtis, I'm the Vehicle Art Director for Star Citizen on the PU. I look after ships and vehicles and weapons.
Okay. And to my right, John Crew.
Hello.
Who are you and what do you do?
I'm John Crew. I'm the vehicle director. Once again, being on camera so many times in the last 24 hours. It's like...
Yes, but while you're on camera in the last 24 hours, we actually filmed those IC things. Like I think it was March 29th when we
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah,
and
so-
they've all just come out
yeah.
in one
You're
shot.
like- and you had to, there was a lot of like, do I remember what I said? Can I see it because I don't remember what I said?
There was lots of naming changes as well
Yeah.
between when we filmed it and when things went out. So
Yeah.
Did you have to dub it all or something?
did nobody notice?
No.
Oh man, I wish we'd done like a really bad dub over the top of it. So every time the word Misk was said, it's just like Mirai.
Yeah. That would be...
Mark, tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
Mark Gibson, I am the lead vehicle content designer for
What's the lead vehicle
spaceships.
content?
So I run the vehicle content team, making sure that the ships come alive and work from a design and functionality standpoint.
He's being very polite. He tells the artists when they're doing things wrong.
I do it a lot.
So send your letters to Mark Gibson, Manchester Goodyard. Corey.
Hey.
Dan. Who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
You really got him there. I'm Dan. I'm a vehicle artist here. Most recently worked on the Fury. You probably saw it like a week ago.
Completely by yourself, I heard.
Yeah. Nah.
One man up.
All right, no
No one else got credit.
Sorry, we're going to do a little insert on this. So we're filming with Dan, and this is back in, like I said, March 29th or whatnot. And Dan is who was in here in this studio, and he was able to make it. Alex could not make it into the studio for the filming. So Dan's talking, and doing the interview. And during the interview, I'm like, this is starting to sound like Dan is the only one who built the ship. And so I asked Dan, I'm like, Dan, you weren't the only person who built the ship. He goes, no. And he went into this awesome, amazing, lovely tribute to Alex. Alex, who's on the vehicle content team.
Rest in peace, Alex.
He goes off and starts talking about how Alex took him under his wing and how Alex really guided him through the entire process, and it's all really sweet. But at the end of it, we realize it starts sounding like Alex is no longer with us, like Alex has died. And so we had it in the cut, and then through a miscommunication, it got cut because somebody thought him sounding like he was dead was a problem. and so it didn't make the final episode, but Alex, what's Alex's last name?
Williams.
Alex Williams, I hope you're watching. You did an amazing job on the Fury.
You killed him off for real.
And we will have you on the
Tribute to Alex
show
Williams.
at some point when you can make it. All right, and then Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Danks. I'm a vehicle content designer too, so I'm one of the team members that Mark leads.
Cool. And go ahead, Corey.
I don't even know if I want to now.
Just get up and
Let's just
leave.
move on.
Yeah.
Well, we find his mic's been cut.
Let's just
since
move
the
on.
beginning.
That's Corey. Corey's there in the middle.
I'm here. I'm just here to vibe, really.
So if you've never seen one of our all ships roundtables before, it wouldn't surprise me. This is only the second one we've done. We gather some designers and some vehicles from the Star Citizen feature and content teams, and we discuss as many aspects of Star Citizen's continuing vehicle development as possible. We did put up a thread earlier this week and collect some questions from you, the backers. We chose the ones that were voted up most and that this collection of people could answer. We'll get to those in a little bit. Before we get started, I want to start with a forever question. I'm going to start with a couple forever questions, things that every year, as every year goes by, these are the questions that always exist, and because every show is somebody's first show. First discussion point: is there such a thing as too many ships? And I'm gonna let you start with this one, John.
No, definitely not. It's only a problem when there's too many of the same type. Like, we obviously have, like, I forget the exact number now, but it's like 200-ish.
Oh, we're at 197 now.
Close. I'm thinking in the future.
Yep. 197 that have been announced and revealed.
So far.
And hopefully at the end of the show, still 100.
No guarantees.
Sorry, Elliot. Just preemptively.
It didn't work out last time we did one of these. If we had 197 light fighters, that's too many light fighters, I think. But when you spread it over all the careers, or the roles, or the progression within the roles, I think there's certainly room for plenty of them.
Anybody with an opposing viewpoint? Can you have too many ships?
Would you still say that if there were 197 different manufacturers? And there were 197
I mean, technically
styles of light
not.
fighter?
No, if there's 197 manufacturers and each of them wants to do a light fighter, then there's going to be some very close, similar attributes beyond visuals, but in that very specific instance, no, I don't think so.
That's not enough ships.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to as well, doesn't it? Because you have a whole host of different manufacturers and a whole host of different roles, and not every manufacturer is going to deliver every role. And I think that's fine, that's fair. I think there's also a lot of space in our universe for things that aren't necessarily like straight off the production line, right? So we're bringing these new systems out, and you don't expect them to have, like, every system to have, it's got a new manufacturer in it and it's got this, that and the other. But I think there's definitely scope for, more less official ships. So things that wouldn't necessarily fall under certain manufacturers, or they might have started out as a particular thing, but they've been retrofitted and kept alive over generations of...
Millennium Falcons kind of thing.
Yeah,
things that
yeah,
have been customized so much.
Yeah.
Can't even tell what it
Junkers.
originally was.
Yeah, like things that just...
Oh no,
Jalopy?
no, not again.
Jalopy?
Not again.
Yeah. That's my role.
You've got the cutter. What more do you want?
I'd agree with John on that. Like, even within subgroups, it's important to have, like, even very similar ships to each other, because every manufacturer will do it a little bit different. So, and players for the most part have manufacturers they prefer, and certain traits that manufacturers do compared to other ones. So certain people might be more luxurious, more military, etc., etc. So having multiple of a similar type across multiple manufacturers, I think that's fine, because it gives people variation about what they want to pick. There's not one type of estate car in the world. There's not one type of sports motorbike in the world. There's variation because people like different things. So if we had 50 Argo single-seat mining ships, then absolutely, but having 5 or 6 across multiple manufacturers all bring little bits and pieces to the table.
You touch on a point that I'm always interested in. There's this idea that the manufacturers all have to have their own distinct identities and all have to adhere to that stuff. And then we introduce things like, well, here's MISC doing this other thing, and they create Mirai, and so that they can still kind of keep their styling but still experiment. But in the real world of automobiles and stuff, you see a car come out and influence a dozen other brands, like when that new Mustang came out back in 2008, and then you saw everybody from Dodge and whatever all try to do their version.
Funny, right?
Yeah, but it's like, is there room in Star Citizen for a manufacturer to look at something another manufacturer is doing, and maybe for Anvil to try to do a Crusader-style ship or something?
Yeah, I mean, don't see why not. It's like, a lot of our stuff is based off cars. It's going to be a very British reference, but you have, like, Vauxhall cars, which is Opel in Europe, and I forget what the actual name of this particular brand was, but basically the Saab 9.3 is a Vauxhall underneath.
Right.
And at the time they owned the same companies, and they're like, take the car, you can change the bodywork slightly, and make it a Saab.
Yeah, well,
And the Saab just ignored that and
you
didn't.
look at like, was it Porsche that, Porsche always made racing cars or sports cars and everything, and then they brought out the SUV, they've done all right, and then like now we've got Lamborghini SUVs, we've got like all and they're like, oh, that's selling all right. We'll have a cut of that pie, and
And you got companies like Mitsubishi who are making sports cars, they're making giant 18-wheel trucks, they're making TVs, and it's like, what's that brand identity?
Making air conditioners.
It's like a lot of that's one of the things I like about like the racing stuff of like the Razor and that. Like a lot of times, car manufacturers will take something from their like racing kind of pedigree and then implement it into the normal like Quattro with Audi and stuff like that, and like Porsche with the flat six and things like that. Like they kind of get informed by their adventures. Like I think the Ford GT was like a massive push as well, like where they tend to use the racetrack as a place to experiment what works and what has got brand
justify
appeal.
the cost as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if they can take technology away from that and put it into the mainstream, then that.
So
That
more
makes
modern MISC ships will probably steal a bit from Mirai if it worked and what didn't work, and less experimental stuff, but some of the new direction.
Yeah, I think like when it comes to MISC and Mirai specifically, like I think there's a real there's a hard distinction for me. Like MISC are kind of very utilitarian, very they've got a purpose, they've got a role, they've got a job. Whereas Mirai is definitely like the performance division.
Yeah.
And so anything that doesn't necessarily fit into that sort of industrial feel, like I think MISC is a really very, very strong art style, and very happy where that's at. But that doesn't mean they can't try new things. And even if you take things like RSI, and you take some of our old RSI ships versus our new RSI ships, they progress over the generations of their vehicle releases. They span hundreds of years, or some
Many
years.
hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And then, of course, people have their own ideas about what these brands are. You see it within the community. Every time we introduce a new ship, they're arguing, is that really a Tumbrel? Is that really Crusader? That doesn't look like a MISC ship or whatnot. Yeah. These conversations happen internally too, though.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember a keen disagreement where you were making a vehicle of one manufacturer and just somebody was really vehemently against it? That's not that manufacturer, it's got to be somebody else.
Mule.
Mule's
an easy one.
Kind of split the wire a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah.
But, I think kind of like, I think the functionality of the Mule leads more to Drake than necessarily like, it is quite a high-end vehicle for Drake. It feels a little bit more refined, but a lot of the inspiration for the Mule came from sort of what we see now in tractors and combine harvesters and that sort of thing, and that they are very purpose-built vehicles, so they kind of tick that sort of that brief, but they are just a little bit nicer.
Melkor the Wise is like, the Mule is high-end?
Well,
For Drake.
Compared to the Drake ship.
yeah, compared to
feels-
like some of the other Drake
yeah.
ships.
It feels more kind of argo-y in a sense. It's like you say, like plant machinery.
Yeah, like if you look at the interior is all sort of like molded plastics, and there's whereas if you look at the interior of some of our Drake like spaceships, they're
Very stripped back.
yeah.
Screens falling
Very
on the floor.
basic.
Screens on the floor, like helicopter seats, that sort of
The
style.
the Vulcan concept was Anvil for probably 80% of its concept development, and then got towards the end and we were like, it's sort of not particularly Anvil-y anymore. It's getting towards Aegis, and then like the whole cockpit bit of it changed to be more like the front of the Reclaimer.
Right.
I still think the Vulture looks more Argo.
Well, the big dirty secret is that there aren't 15 different manufacturers making all these. It's the people at this table who are making them. And so you've got to put your brain in, okay, I've got to put my brain in Drake mode, I've got to put my brain in Crusader mode, and sometimes the brain just doesn't want to do what you want it to do, and it will push you, towards whatever these other manufacturers are. And occasionally that leads you to invent new manufacturers when your brain just wants to do something completely different.
Like I remember just before I moved on to the Fury, like I'd spent like a little bit of time on the Corsair, like helping Lod it, and like my entire visual library was just Drake, and then it's like now you're doing like MISC racing ship that's kind of Mirai performance kind of thing. Like we weren't really sure which direction it was going to go then, right? And it was like every time I modeled anything, I went square, I went big bolt, and Ben was like, no, rivets, metal, like chrome. Like I was like, okay. And it was like every mechanism was more Drakey until I like remembered like the direction of it, right?
And I want to jump in there before the person goes to Reddit. You just referred to the Fury as a racing ship. Obviously, the 2 variants that we just released are not dedicated.
No, I meant like nippy, like they're fast and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, just before the Reddit thread started. Although we did discuss the possibility of exploring new variants. Let's talk about that real quick, because this is the Invictus show and whatnot. Let's take a minute. It's my show. We'll do whatever I like. Pitch me a variant. So John, for those of you who maybe haven't seen the show or whatnot, during the Invictus, the Fury segment last week, John said that we're open to exploring additional variants of the Fury in the future. We're here. We're live. Yes. Hi. Put you on the spot here. Pitch me a Fury variant, just off the top of your head. If you could make any Fury variant, what's the first thing that comes to your head? Here?
Boarding variant.
A what?
Boarding variant. So the front of it, the actual circular thing at the front would actually be to the small docking collimatric. So once you disable the ship, you could just slam into it. It opens up, force open the.
I feel like you need to turn the dome round, the donut, so it's like facing that way. So it kind of goes this way instead, and then you just like.
You'd be
Well,
quite
you could just have the
lacklustre
ship come
boarding
out.
party, though.
Well, you disable the ship. If you've got one of them in your ship, you can then use that to get over. So you don't have to EVA over. You get in it, you fly over. It's really manoeuvrable. It's really good handling. Go on.
So you'd have it with wings, and they're basically the claws, or
Latch on.
without wings, and it just gets shot straight out of Jeffrey's tube.
Oh no. He's done it.
No.
Again.
No.
But in essence, yeah, that would be mine, because then you could use them to forcibly board and try and take over other people's ships.
There's only one of you. I guess you'd have to send a lot of them.
You're the weapon.
Yeah, you're the weapon. Do you not have faith in your
Be
own
on my
FPS?
own.
Does it detach once you've got out? Or
No,
is
it stays attached because you've forcibly docked yourself with, just like what's the other one called? We made
Legionnaire.
Just like Legionnaire, but single-person Legionnaire. So you forcibly dock with the enemy, you force your way into the ship, and then you try and steal
get
the ship.
immediately shot and then they all.
Well, if you're just not that good at FPS, fine.
All right, so that's Mark's pitch. We can't spend too much time on this. Corey, what's your pitch?
I was thinking short range cargo / transport kind of thing for zipping about.
Put cargo in
Well,
the Fury.
You could work something out, right?
That's going to be my bit.
With no quantum
You're the
drive.
artist. You'd have to do it. Where are you thinking about putting cargo?
I mean,
Some little arms, like a little submarine,
yeah,
little
you
like.
could give it like a little arm.
Or just strap it to the top like the
Strap-
family
yeah.
wagon?
Yeah, roof bars.
Oh, can't put it on the top because that'll block the fuel port.
You don't need fuel, just put some zip ties on it. It's fine.
That's fair.
All right, Chris?
People transport. Take the guns off the wings and strap on some drop seats.
No way.
I did see that Reddit post of that you can actually
You
get
fit
two
two
people in the cockpit.
Oh God.
You get one person to sit there.
That is like the number one reason I was like, I do not want to put a room volume on this thing.
Yeah.
But I know that I have to. Somebody is going to just crouch in here.
Yeah.
All right, Dan?
Salvage. Yeah, definitely.
Salvage Fury?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
you can, like,
definitely.
kinda like
That'd be well cool. You change the top 2 guns for like salvage arms, and then the bottom 2 could like, instead of having like, we have like the 2 size 1 missiles on the inside, you could put like, that's where it gets stored or whatever. And it
But
just
where would
creates
you put the material?
It would be mounted on the inside, so then you just nip out real quick, mine it, and then drop back to your reclaimer or whatever, and then like throw them.
Not
throw
like
them in.
a chain of saddlebags
Yeah.
trailing behind you as you're flying?
The idea is that like you deploy so many of them that by the time you'd filled up, the other 20 you had with you would have already got it. You're like locusts flying through. There you go, there's your name. The Fury Locust. There it is.
All right, just a reminder that the views and opinions expressed in this video those of Planet Imperium Games, Robert Space Industries, or its subsidiaries. Ben!
I don't know, everyone's told them the good ones. I'll go boring and go racing.
I promise
but
nobody's
think-
taking the good ones.
Yeah, like, I think going racing though, I think it just needs to like, just have one massive engine on the back of it and some really little wings. So it's just
So
like,
a racing
basically like a
variant.
rocket.
A racing variant.
Yeah, like a rocket.
How'd you get to the power plant?
You just don't worry about it. You got a pit crew for that.
Yeah.
Well, no, we can use the Xi'an tech, right? So it can be like a little like floaty ball thing on some arms behind it, and it's like a really massive, great big engine that comes down and lifts up, and it's good.
There you go.
Basically, strap yourself to a rocket.
Ship it.
All right, John, I don't want to pick any of these, so you decide.
Don't. They're all
Pick one.
This is how we do it.
Oh, we're doing it live. Okay.
Melee version. 4 big spikes.
You're saying this because you saw Adam made this
Yes.
morning. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I loved it.
So what?
So this morning, Adam scaled up some of the
It was the combat
FPS combat knives, the one that looks like it's partially a chain
To the
saw.
size of the wings.
And he put them on the wings, so it looked like it had 4
Knives.
bladed, knived wings, because with the size of the wings, and you just ram people with it.
That would work great with your docking idea, though.
There you go.
Point.
I would
Combine
say,
it.
along with the melee idea, though, back when I was trying to make the Grey Cat PTV fly around and everything, I had actually put giant fists in the front. Remember the old Superman Hot Wheels toy that for some reason Superman had a spaceship and it had giant fists that flew out, and I had Hosmer helped me, but I got a Grey Cat PTV to fly around, and it had 2 giant scaled up arms with fists in the front, and it could just fly around. So I mean, I feel like we're on the same wavelength, man. I feel like
We can make it happen.
I feel like we can make it happen.
Submersible variant.
What?
Don't start the spaceship submarine argument again.
Come on.
All right, so we're about halfway through the show already.
Seriously.
Let's jump into some backer questions. So these were questions that were submitted on Spectrum and voted up by you, the viewers, and in no particular order here. Saw this one coming. How do you expect to work through the backlog of ships? And at what point in the game can we expect larger ships such as the Kraken, Polaris, and Perseus? Now that one's a when question. So, but let's go with the core here. How are we expecting to work through this backlog?
Cool. I'll start and then others can chime in if they want. So the last year or so, we've been really sort of improving and just making the pipeline work better. Mark and Corey have done a great job revitalizing all the documentation that sort of I wrote years ago and we've just lived with. But because I've done more and more leadership and directorship, I've not been so hands-on with things. So they've taken that over and built the pipeline. The last 2 ships we've released have gone through sort of that new pipeline, and things have mostly gone smoother. Still doing some tweaks as we go. But ultimately, at the end of the day, big ships need a lot of resources to make them. And where we want to get to is a place where we're still delivering the same amount of content as we do now a year, as well as 1 to 2 capitals a year on top of that, and supporting all the other teams like we do. And at the end of the day, that just needs more people. So
You want to get to the point of delivering
Yes.
1 to 2 capitals of ships.
Yes,
You're
that's-
not saying that we are at that point, right?
We're not at that point yet. We're building to that point. So the last few months we've been starting to expand the team, which people have probably seen with the introduction of the Montreal vehicle team. And we're also looking for more artists in the UK. So if people are watching,
Yeah, and any
Please apply.
You know any good leads?
Yeah, any lead artists watching.
replace Corey.
Yeah, give us a shout.
A little plug.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon. A lot of these shows do serve multiple purposes, and they're absolutely, from the conversations that I have to have with the talent acquisition team every single week, they're definitely a hiring tool.
Run the ads and basically just run
This is the ad.
our page.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're presenting to these people who it would be that they're working with. So and
How
we're
many
showing them.
spaceships? It's
Are
cool.
you sure you want us on here then?
It's too late now.
I think, like, just to touch on that as well, is people kind of think it's easy, right? You want more spaceships, you hire more people, and done. Like, it's this 10 more people, you can do 3 more ships. But there's obviously a lot of time and effort goes into like training up staff and making sure staff are, we're growing the team is quite a difficult challenge. Especially when we've got like leads that are already at capacity, and then we're like, okay, we want to add, we want to double our team, right. And okay, well, we can't still have like it goes from one person that's already trying to juggle like 3 or 4 ships at once to then going, okay, well they can now juggle away, and it's like it's just not sustainable. So we have grown the team quite a lot in the last kind of 6 months to a year. We've started a new team in Montreal. We're looking to grow a 2nd team and probably a 3rd team in the UK. So yeah, like. We're expanding, but it does take time. And
Yeah, there's a misconception that, like you said, you just add more people and instantly more things get made.
Yeah.
But the reality is, and this isn't just for vehicles, this is for any discipline in anything, when you have to teach, when you have to train, when you have to onboard, your production gets slower. Because you now have to slow down everything that you would normally be doing in order to explain everything and make this stuff work. And then, so if things slow down before they get faster, and this is with anything, not just vehicles, whatever. And then, you know, God help us, you know, the person doesn't last. The person does, you know, goes and finds a different opportunity, or just, you know, they interviewed well, but, you know, the reality wasn't. And now that slowdown has yielded no positive results. So it is definitely a process. And yeah, so we talked about this Montreal team. The next question from the backers is literally, what is the purpose of the Montreal team? Are they dedicated to like a specific type of ship? Is it?
No, I think it's a really dangerous thing to get into if you have multiple teams. Myself in the face. If you've got like multiple teams and you're like, oh, you know, you're the A team and you're the B team, or you're team this and your team that, and it's not a case of that. It's you know, the way we prioritize our ships is we get our ship priority, and that comes from John and the execs and all the important people, and then we look at, you know, what resources we have and, you know, what people are best fitted for, and then we allocate work that, you know, we feel confident that people can achieve. And like, if we had a new team come in and we're like, hey, we got some capital ships for you, here you go, you know, you're not setting that team up to succeed. You're just setting them up to fail. Realistically, our big capital ships take a sizable team to deliver. So yeah, you know, initially we're getting them on board to kind of help, you know, fill out some of our backlog ships, help do some variants of existing ships. We're at the moment just trying to kind of, like I say, onboard them. They've been going for
April 1st is when they officially started.
Okay, yeah, a couple of months now.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, we're kind of, they're getting up to speed. They're doing a fantastic job of learning the ropes and, you know, understanding our processes and pipelines, working through a few ships that will be coming out at some point, and then we'll put on something bigger.
Well, that's the other thing. They're a brand new team. They're not massive. It's not like they're anywhere near the size of the UK ship team. It's like, if I remember correctly, it's 3 artists, 1 designer. Is it 4 artists maybe?
4 technically.
4?
4 artists technically, but 1's in the UK at the moment.
Yeah,
and yeah, 1 designer who was here for the last 2 weeks doing his onboarding.
Right.
He's literally on a plane now back to Canada to carry on with those guys when he gets there.
And when you get a brand new team like that, it's not even just them learning how we do things, because obviously every team does it. Like, the way you build an environment isn't the way you build a ship, and the quality and the techniques and everything are massively different. So like, if you've got a brand new team coming in, you're not going to throw them on a ship that's going to take them the next, for argument's sake, 18 months to develop, because like the quality in their work over that 18 months from when they first start to when they get towards the end is going to massively change. With the larger ships, you need people who are more experienced, who are already embedded within the pipeline, because otherwise you're going to have such an inconsistent experience across the actual ship.
It's just, yeah, and also, you know, the ships, small ships can be complicated, big ships are complicated. It's all, you know, fairly complicated stuff. But like I say, when you get to a capital ship, there's a lot of unknowns there. I do think, you know, we've got Jason, who's come across from the environment art team, and he's got a whole wealth of knowledge on building environment art assets and building out those kits. So he's got a huge amount of knowledge there we can lean on for building out our capital ships. But yeah, like I say, sticking someone on something for a year and a half when they're, you know, initially you want to get a few under your belt, learn the processes, touch lots of different areas of the ship, so do interiors, exteriors, and just learn everything basically.
I think another point as well is that in general, for interiors, at least the quality of what we receive in like pre-production is generally spread a little bit thinner. So the interior concepts for capital ships are generally like key art and some fairly like vague interior spaces. So like the production team has to do a lot more of the exploration. Whereas if you have a smaller ship, you know, generally the interior concept's a lot stronger because there's just fewer things to work on, right? You get a lot more detail, a lot more to work from. So yeah, I'd say like definitely you have, coming into production, you have sort of fewer things to figure out on smaller ships.
The other thing is with, if you want to move on, the other thing is with the capital ships, once we actually put them in, we want to try and build them in a way that makes it easier to then do the other capital ships of that same manufacturer.
Okay, keep going.
No. Do the other ships of that exact same manufacturer? So like, once we do one RSI, we want to set ourselves up so that we can roll into the others a lot easier. So instead of having to reinvent the wheel every time, we have stuff as a foundation to just move it forward quicker.
Yeah. I'm looking at chat here. Forgive me. We're limited crew. My entire crew got sick, so I'm doing everything myself. You see my buttons and everything. So if you're wondering why somebody's talking and the camera's on somebody else, that's me. Explain me. Oh, where was it? Thorium Jim says it's so painful listening to these excuses. What do you have to say? Are these excuses? Or are these...
We're looking for artists and lead artists and everything. Want to come shout out, do it better? You're welcome.
So let's go to we got next two questions are some of those perennial questions here. First one is ship modularity.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even need to read it, do I? But it says, has there been any progress on modularity since it was last talked about?
Yes, good news at last.
Good news.
Well, we'll be the
Good
judge
news.
of that. We'll be the judge of that.
So,
you ready, chat?
Eyes on the chat, guys. Come on.
Yep. So with the development of the Hull C, we've pretty much figured out the last hurdle. And in fact, Chris is responsible for the test that I got him to do for it, where we can have object containers, which is the interior collection of assets, loaded as an item, loaded onto the ship, because that's how the rear of the Hull C is attached to the ship and moves with it. What had stopped us technically going any further with this was items inside those object containers couldn't talk to the vehicle it was connected to.
Right.
So the example of the Retaliator, the torpedo droppy arms, they're actually part of the exterior of the ship currently because that's the only way they can work. So if we allowed you to swap the modules, no matter what module you had, there'd be a pair of torpedo arms dangling through the middle of it. Chris did a test where he attached a load of missile racks and torpedoes to the inside of the back of the Hull C, which is not going to ship with it.
Wait, you're saying we're not having a torpedo Hull C?
Yeah.
There is a shelf that says "Do not submit" in very large letters.
And the pilot had full control of that, and they could fire them. So after the Hull C ships and we found any more quirks with that setup, we're in a position where, to my knowledge, touch wood, technically there's nothing stopping us doing modularity now. That was the last big hurdle for it.
There's nothing technically stopping us from doing it, but there's also priorities and
It might be
things and
logistics.
building a team.
Nothing technically stopping us.
Yeah, nothing technically stopping us. Yeah.
So what I heard was that whole CMX at CitizenCon.
Oh yeah, just full of size 9 torpedoes.
All of the cargo arms are just full of torpedo racks that just fire out.
All right, next one. We're just going to put the camera right on John Crew. Physicalized damage. This has been one of those, when we talk about things that hold up this system or that system, the idea of bullets and ballistics and everything passing through and damaging the components within a ship has been linked to be the keystone to so many other developments. Anything you can tell us about physicalized damage?
Good news part 2.
Oh.
So it is really under heavy active development at the moment. So physics team have done a lot of work in the last 6 months on it. We're now at a point where other feature and gameplay teams have joined them to sort of work out the quirks with it. The vehicle content team have provided assets of ships set up in this new way of doing things. Should caveat this, it's not a vehicle thing, it's an everything thing. Every destructible system in the game will use this. So whilst everyone sort of uses the vehicle example of bullets going through ships, it replaces the prop breakable system, it replaces the environment breakable system, it replaces the vehicle damage system. There's another one I forget. So environment teams, prop teams, vehicle teams, we're all working on this at the moment with a bunch of use case scenarios that are with the engineers.
So it's more like an overall destructible physics system.
Yes, yeah. People have probably heard the word maelstrom in various monthly reports and pieces.
Checking whether that's legit or
It's
not.
not a ship.
I'll wipe the board when we get back.
Right.
So that's the name of that overarching system. It's definitely been said.
In all offense, it's just the name for the system that they already knew was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the internal project name.
But by giving something a name, you give it power.
But it's more than just the physicalized damage for ships. It is a global, destructible physics system that we're not going to sit here and commit to it being applied to every single element of Star Citizen.
No.
There's always going to be performance considerations. But you develop the system, and then you start to see where you can plug it in and apply
You'd find
it.
use cases for it. It'd be like a general system.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Chris. Let's see, what else we got? Ship tractors. Ship tractor beams were recently brought up again. What's the state of these and their large cargo counterparts?
So the ship tractor beams, we've done a... Can I talk? Yep.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at John to make
on
sure
you.
it's okay. We've done a lot of work for them recently. We have current implementation set up on multiple vehicles that are meant to actually have the tractor beams attached to them. Their current implementation works from a vehicle setup standpoint. There's still some remaining work to do from the actual EUPU team. They're actually delivering the vehicle tractor beams themselves. But right now in the environment we've developed it, you can spawn the ships that have them in and use them. Another big bit of confusion is because the sizing, when we did some of it, we did it to weapon sizes instead of component sizes, whereas EUPU have done their development on it. They've decided they want to go in the direction of component sizing rather than weapon sizing. So some of the size numbers will have changed, but how much they lift is consistent for how much we've always wanted it to lift. So, for example, instead of going all the way up to I think the biggest one we ever said was like size 6 or size 5 or something. The biggest one now will be the size 3, and we might do size 4 if we ever do something for a very niche situation. But
The SRV is
the
a
SRV
3 now.
is a 3, but that 3 is able to move ships. But size 2s can do 32 SU containers. I can't remember how much size 1s and 0s do, but we've just reformatted it as the systems start formalized a lot more. But yep, on the ships, we've got an implemented version of it working currently.
As far as the vehicle content team is concerned, we've
Yeah.
done a pass on the artwork to ships that were supposed to feature a tractor beam. We've now added kind of supporting geometry for them and made sure that it actually works, basically.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the
Caterpillar?
Caterpillar.
Yep.
Caterpillar's got
Nomad,
2.
Cutlass, 315P.
I feel like there's one more.
I feel like there's one more.
One more.
Was it?
Connie Taurus.
Yeah.
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 On its,
We didn't
lower
really
turret.
do anything for that one, though, but it was kind of a freebie, right, for now. But we want to
For now.
probably at some
But
point. with the
we've done
turrets.
proper geometry integration for the ones where there just wasn't any, because there wasn't any on the Cutlass, there wasn't any on the 315, there wasn't any on the Nomad. So there's proper integration for them now.
There was stuff kind of hinting it, but it wasn't.
It's
It
probably
wasn't legit, so to speak.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually a utility mount with a actual.
Yeah, so they're now proper
vehicle
turrets, so you
tractor on
can swap to the view and use
Yep.
them and move boxes and things.
How's the golden standard for the Retaliator going? We'll get to that point where we do some updates on ships general, but this was a highly voted question.
It is in progress. We're working on the cockpit at the moment, bring it up to modern standards because it's a bit
Yeah.
old-fashioned, I guess is one way to say. It's not really got MFDs to the right metrics anymore.
Right.
Doing it for Squadron first, and then it'll work its way into the P when we're happy with what we need to do for Squadron.
Will there be a way to dock a reclaimer to a station in the future to avoid needing to go down to the planet to retrieve it?
So we wanted that originally for the original implementation of the docking collars, but we found that the current positioning of the arms and the engines were off. So we're going to have to go in and fix that, as well as I think we found the actual doors were the wrong size as well. So we need
The
to
door
sort
is
them
just
as well.
some
I
random
think we looked
door.
at that and we did some work towards.
No, we wanted to do it. We just
Okay.
didn't have time when we were doing all the other
Docking
salvage
collars.
work.
Yeah. So
yeah.
it's wanted, but it's going to require changes to the exterior, the physical arms and everything, which are very complicated mechanisms. So it's a big time investment. So it's something that's going to get done, but it's when we can find resources to actually do it. Because, like you said, with the ramp up, every time we try and expand the team, we're losing resources to actually train the new people that are coming in.
So complete rework for the reclaimer. Tyler. I'm just kidding. I was trying to make a joke and then I got the names mixed up.
There's certainly a lot of room for improvement with the reclaimer.
Like the rear cargo lift and everything needs
Yeah,
probably
the
doing.
whole rear section of everyone's favourite multi-stage elevator.
Wait, did you say Starfarer or Reclaimer?
Reclaimer.
Okay, so Starfarer is perfect.
Starfarer is not perfect.
The Starfarer is having its insides pulled out, redone completely.
Can I watch that? Can I watch you?
Stream it pay-per-view.
Absolutely.
So we have personal feelings too. Let's see. We talked a lot about the capital ships. Things like this. One of the most voted up questions here is about the Polaris. Simply put, is the Polaris actually in production? It shows that it is on the progress tracker, but the Apollo was once on the progress tracker at one point as well, and priorities change, and yada, yada, yada. So we'll go to Camera John here. There's one more. Camera John. There we go. That just sounded like Ben wanted the question.
No, I didn't.
Oh, good. Ben.
No, you were talking crap
think it's
about
only
it.
fair.
Okay, Ben.
All right.
So is the Polaris in production?
I'm going to start with the Apollo.
Let's talk about capital ships and when they're in development. So Apollo.
The Apollo is now a capital ship.
Yeah, it got through so much.
Don't.
All right, we'll talk about the Polaris. So the Polaris is I'd say it's more in pre-production. Like we are spending time investigating it at the moment. As we've already kind of hinted on, when it comes to doing our capital ships, we want to make sure that we're tackling them in a way that allows us to scale up to not just do one capital ship and we can tick off a few more from the lineup. It is like literally the last couple of weeks we've been looking at it, breaking down the concept, breaking down what is involved with actually delivering it. I think what people need to understand as well is, this is quite an old ship. The concept is quite old. There's a lot of gaps in it, as Corey mentioned. So really, we're just doing our kind of, our sanity check on everything. Make sure we've got everything in progress. It will be going into full production
Very soon.
Shortly. Yeah, very, very soon.
Very soon, TM.
So
Chris deleted the old interior setup level for it this afternoon, ready for the new one. So that's how soon it is.
We are working on it.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
there
it is-
isn't a full team on it yet.
Okay.
We're doing the pre-productions.
That's
in the pipeline last time. There's been a lot of pre-planning changes to help us further, not have us trip over ourselves. So it is in production in that sense.
yeah.
It's
It
just-
hasn't started like
And it hasn't
white
cracked
boxing.
open
Yeah,
Max
like we haven't
and
started
making the walls.
adding assets to the editor and stuff, but we are basically doing a full breakdown of what we've got, working out how we're going to tackle it, trying to get the plans in place, and answer the questions. There's some holes in the concept which we could do with a little bit more work on, and they're a bit loose. So it's just kind of breaking down that stuff. But we haven't got a team of artists that are working on it. We have one, and then I look at it every so often. Corey sticks his nose in it, and it's just it's us trying to. We want to come to a point where we can come together, have a proper kick-off with the team that are working on it, and go, okay, we know what we're asking you to do, rather than being like, hey everyone, let's have a look, click. This is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and to touch on the roadmap bit, something that often gets overlooked on the roadmap is it doesn't particularly show people moving on and off projects or tasks. So you could have someone on the Polaris for 1 week and they go off it for a week and then they go back on it for another week. That will show as 3 weeks continuous, or you could have one person come on, one person go off, then another person comes on, and that will show 2 people for that entire time. In conjunction with that, as part of all of our pipeline work, we've been moving away from our previous scheduling method, which is what the roadmap uses, to being more in Jira. And then, because that live updates with the data as we're working through things, and then at some point we go back and put it in there. So there is a bit of lag in how the roadmap updates. So yes, people have been working on it, but it's not like hey, we've got 8 artists working on it since 2 weeks ago when the roadmap said.
Yeah. And I was going to say, with the Apollo, because the Apollo was mentioned as well, that's pretty much what we've done on the Apollo. We had one artist working on it, doing all the pre-production work, making sure it was in a good state, answering all the questions that were unanswered on it, so it's ready to go into production. It is not in production. We haven't got a whole team of artists working on it, but we've done all that preliminary work, and that's why it's not been on the roadmap, because someone's been allocated to it, they've been chipping away at it and getting it ready.
All right, let's see. Next question says, some ship designs have flaws with component swapping. How will this be addressed on legacy ships, and especially where components won't fit past doors or airlocks and things like ladders? I was just going to look at Mark instantly.
Yeah, I can go with it. So a lot of that's what gold standard's for. So when we go through and do gold standards, using the Retaliator as an example, a lot of the components wouldn't fit through the doors of the Retaliator as you tractor beam them out and move them. So the doors and things have been widened so they would actually fit. Another thing is what components are actually meant to be taken out with tractor beam. So it's size 3 and capitals obviously aren't meant to be tractor beamed out. You're supposed to go to a dry dock and someone else will take it out for you because they're too large of components to do, because theoretically to get to them you need to cut parts of the hull out because they're just too large for a person to lift. So the size 0, 1 and 2 you should be able to tractor beam out. Doors that don't fit currently, gold standard will address that, but until we do gold standards on the interiors of a lot of the ships, there may be doors where you can't get them out or places you can't get the components through.
There is a couple like random occasions where like we get like as artists like, oh, can you jump on this ship for like, you know, it's like a half an hour fix to allow you to get your components out your ship, and like we have those, we've got all of the ships like divvied up amongst ourselves, so like even though people leave and people join, there's like the list of all of the ships and it's like, okay, you're responsible for these. So if there's a component swapping issue on like a particular ship, that like one of mine, I've forgotten which one it was, but I had to like remove around a little bit of the room. Nothing players would really notice, but like it's just enough to make the collision a bit more comfortable to move it out. So you get occasions like that where you'll get like a random like bug come through and it's like, oh, if you've got a spare 10 minutes to do that, you quickly look at it, you're like, oh yeah, that's a really quick fix that will hopefully make your lives a lot easier. So we do try to, even though we're like, you know, I'm on this ship for X amount of time, I will disappear for like an hour or two if it saves you guys the grief, you know.
Yeah. It depends on the amount of work, right?
Yeah,
so like,
yeah. If it's like a massive overhaul, like obviously that takes
none of the doors.
But if I can like sneak it in, like I'll try, you know.
Some of it's really quick wins, like when the ship was initially modeled or when someone created the component base, they just forgot to like cut a hole in the collision for the components. So it's literally impossible to remove it because it's like behind the collision of the exterior, for example.
I think like, you know, a lot of our ships were made before we had like, there was no feature work had been done on it, so we didn't know how we were going to tackle it. So we were just making the best decisions we could at the time.
Yeah.
And now we know better.
Yeah.
So that pipeline has evolved, and some of them are super quick. Some of them are like, this door has no animation, it has no mechanics to do the animation, there's just a hole behind it, and they're the ones that take a bit more time. You know, they need a proper art pass, proper design pass.
That's why they call it game development and not game construction.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Vanguard's a good example, right? Had that little railing, which from that point looked nice, having that little railing as you go up the stairs. I think so, where you just cut the railing off. It's a small little thing, easier to do, but like at the time when we did it, looked good from that standpoint. No one really thought, oh, that railing's going to get in the way of the components, because it wasn't something that people actively
same
thought about.
Same with some of the component hatches that have doors that sort of clamshell open.
Yeah.
They were done so they open it, looks nice and cool, and like, yeah, it'll fit out there.
You can get.
But then when it comes to actually taking it out, they're like, they're a centimetre not far open enough. So there's all sorts of little things that you don't spot.
Yeah. And this is the kind of stuff that happens with any video game. It's just usually they don't have a live environment in the middle of their development.
Yeah.
So,
It's kind of it's just tech debt, really. Like, you know, a feature comes online, it gets proven out, and then if we have to re-implement that into a bunch of like existing assets, you know, we try our best to anticipate what kind of features will be coming, but we don't necessarily know how that feature will work. So, you know, part of the challenge of being sort of a team that's affected by a feature is you have to then retroactively support it, you know. So I think that's a big part of what gold standard is. These are all the features we need to support in our vehicles, and it's basically making those vehicles comply with those features.
We had it with salvage as well, right? Like, it was like exactly the same thing where it was like, oh, there's like loads of quick fixes we can do, or like, okay, we need to dedicate some time to this. And then when salvage first came online, we like had quite a few of us working on it to really try and like get that stuff sorted out. And other ships that were made maybe more recently, or whenever, like particular ships, you'd go to fix it and you're like, this is fine.
Yeah,
great.
It becomes a part of your, you know, your validation. It becomes a part of the like acceptance criteria for the ship. Is it needs to support this feature. So, you know, we would bring those features into the like review process and basically make sure actually, if we're making a new ship, it should have physicalized components, etc. That all of the features that exist for the ship will be, you know, validated as a part of the, you know, review process. So it's more the older content that was kind of, you know, when we first started out, we were kind of discovering what a ship.
It's why each one of these that we make, we get better at it.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Yeah, hopefully.
you know, the Rock DS.
It's fine.
Cut you off. And it's like, no, terminate it. Cut them off.
Was that the emergency button?
Kill it.
The salvage thing was a really good example of how some things you just can't plan for ahead of time. Like, salvage is coming online, we know it's going to use the UV2 damage system. We've done all that for the ships already because that's what damage does when you shoot ships. So we're good. And then when it came online, we're like,
Oh boy.
we're not good.
Yeah. Well, we didn't realise quite how much of the the visuals would affect the actual data. So you know, the parts of the ship that were like slightly wouldn't necessarily take as much damage, and they it'd look fine when you'd blown this thing up. But then it was meaning that you could never like 100% salvage the ship because you couldn't salvage like certain panels, and obviously it just looked a bit weird that you'd be salvaging along and it would just stop, and it's like, oh well, yeah.
Or when there was stuff behind it that would make you see through, like
Or salvage like the left wing, and then like the rear right fin would just disappear, and you're like, wait, what?
What's going on? Yeah.
No, in chat they're debating whether I did that on purpose when I mentioned the my absolute adoration for the Rock DS. No, I did not do that on purpose. If I had done that on purpose, I would have said how much I really like the Rock DS, and then this would have happened. Let's see, we're almost out of time. Let's see how many more questions we can get in there. The C1 Spirit is marked to have an S3 tractor beam. Will the C1 be able to track smaller vehicles? And what's the difference between an S3 and an S5? This goes to your...
Yeah, that's what I was talking about before. It's not supposed to track the vehicles. It's for 32 SU cargo containers, the size 2. So it's getting changed to a size 2, but it's just part of the refactor of the tractor beam sizes.
It's still just as powerful as it was. It's just the names changed.
It doesn't do any less or more than we said it was going to do originally. It's just that the numbering's changed because we're now doing component grading instead of weapon grading.
Does that mean it can... I don't know if I want to ask this question.
Go on, ask the question.
So if you've got like a PTV that's like super small, can that be picked up by a size 2?
32 SU containers. What was set as the maximum you'd have to ask a UPU.
Full of what though? Gold?
That's a UPU.
Water.
It's their feature.
Come on, give us the answers.
So
all right, I'll just go ask.
Is the PTV smaller or larger than 32?
Well, physically it's smaller.
Yeah,
it's much
and it would weigh less?
Definitely would have less mass.
I feel like I'm getting someone into trouble here. Do the redacted thing.
Quick call Thorsten.
Yeah.
Yeah, ring Thorsten.
Can we get Thorsten on the line?
So that's confirmation that the new tractor beams will be able to lift a gray cat. Let's see.
I can hear the team's messages as well already.
Yeah,
Teams messages are going to break the door down.
What? All right, you had to know this one was coming. What does the Fury and Cutter shutters mean for the Carrack?
It's not as cool.
We'll do them at some point.
No, who's taking it?
Me, I guess. So I want to put them on it. I just need to find time to do it. I was told today after learning of it, because I'm one of the newer members of the team, so I didn't actually know that Carrack needed these shutters and stuff. That's for like these guys who know it inside and out to tell me. So I was informed today, because the Carrack's one of the ships I look after. It's like, oh Dan, if you get time, you can put the blast shields on the Carrack, and I was like, oh, and you're going to say it on live as well. Now I'm going to get bombarded on Twitter until it's done. So
Oh, you've confirmed it.
Yeah, so if you find Dan on Twitter, on Spectrum, if you can dig out his email address, feel free
Don't.
I will try for you guys, but yeah, it's just a case of time, and like
Dan doesn't dictate his own priorities.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
When we talk about like when you jump on for like
blame me, it's fine.
it kind of comes back to like the salvage stuff or like the tractor beaming of components. Like if I look at it and I go, oh, that's a quick fix, it'll be a quick thing. But if I look at it and I'm like, that is not a quick thing, I need to ask for some time because it will affect my other work, then it becomes
we did say that you can have a look at it and see how much work it is, and if if the file's already been set up, all the animation data's there, it's all ready to go, and it's just a case of we just need to export it and do it, then cool. But if it's going to take you away from the current vehicle you're on for a week or two, then...
When the Carrack was developed, we did prove
Don't.
Yeah. It's nice to fix bugs as a treat.
It's just there's more to it.
It's
that
like
needs doing. We made sure it would work, but that's...
Okay. All right. I thought you were going to say, yeah, it only take 5 minutes.
No. What I'm saying is we just proved out the spacing, the animation mechanism and stuff. Like it's going to need UV2s, it's going to be LODs, it's going to need more detail and popping, all that stuff.
It's not going to take 5 minutes then?
No.
Yeah.
I mean,
15.
he did manage to build the entire Fury all by himself.
Yeah, I know.
Rip
On a
Alex.
single
Rip
weekend.
Alex.
In memory of Alex.
In memory of Alex.
F's in the chat.
Let's see. A long time ago in the shipyard articles, you mentioned different component types. We talked about sizes, industrial, military, etc., and the ability to tune them. Is this still the plan? And if so, can you give us any hope for the future of tuning? Love Twingo? Oh, that's your car. Is it
Yeah.
Twingo?
We'll talk about the Twingo for the rest of the time. It's sort of more of a EU-PU thing now. Definitely plans to have those different types, grades, sort of like performance windows for different items. And they have a pretty comprehensive engineer slash tuner slash repairer gameplay proposal that they're working on as part of some of the other features they're doing. So it's sort of tuning items is part of that role. So it's definitely planned.
Yeah, with that, let's see, anything else? Normally, we're just about out of time. Normally, we do kind of a round robin on ships that are in production right now. Because, like you said, sometimes the public roadmap falls a little bit out of sync and stuff like this. Can you just give us an update on ships that are what you would consider in active production as opposed to like pre-production? We know the Polaris is what we consider pre-production. Yeah. Somebody is on there scoping out the work necessary before it moves into production. But what's in active production right now?
We're in the danger zone here now.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to slowly do it and look at John as I see.
Okay,
So there's Redacted that's on Josh.
Yeah.
There's Adam's. Will I talk about that one?
I'm trying to think what Adam's doing.
Who knows?
Spirit.
Yeah.
Yep. We've got
Too late.
too late now.
It's on that one.
I was pretty sure that one was safe. So we've got the Spirit in. What else do we have?
SLV just finished art and design.
Yeah. Obviously.
Hull C.
Yep. Hull
Just
C.
at the end, in its final teething
We've got some
stages.
more redacteds that are on Chris. What else is it? What the US working on?
X1?
What's the US working on?
X1's about to start on the US.
Well, technically, that's had a little bit of work done there already, but...
Yeah, the Storm is storming through production.
Oh, he did it.
No, it was in the segment. It was in the episode yesterday. Oh, you said the storm is storming through. Yeah, no, we actually... we missed a narrative bit. It's, again, some of the things that missed through. It's like, in case you guys didn't catch it from the episode, the Tumble Storm is in a concept promotion right now as part of Invictus, but it is already in production with the LA
Well
ship folks.
into
And
production.
it's looking good. That stuff you saw at the end, that was not concept art. That was the actual white box and well into gray box stuff. It's looking great so far.
They're doing the Santok guy as well.
We'll be updating for the We'll be showing you an update on the Santok Yai for Alien Week in just a few weeks.
Montreal are working on some variants of an existing ship. I'm just trying to mentally go around the floor.
Pretty sure that's all of them. Because
Retaliator stuff we're doing, we talked about before.
G12?
G12 will be going, so in the next year, backlog ships that will be going into production, caveat, things can always change.
Yeah.
Polaris, Apollo, G12, Raylan, X1s.
I'm noticing something conspicuously absent.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Ban new.
So we'll talk about the Merchantman briefly, because we discussed like how we want to do the backlog of capital ships. So we want to start with RSI, because doing the Polaris first helps reduce the amount of work needed for the Perseus and the Galaxy. Mm-hmm. So those three will likely be like a chain of dependencies from each other.
Kind of shared assets.
Yeah, there's a lot of shared assets between them. Obviously the exteriors are like quite different, but you do an RSI hall kit or corridor kit, floor kit, doors, beds, chairs. Yeah, it all gets reused across them, maybe with some slight material differences. So there are a few things that are problematic with the BMM. Firstly, everything is unique.
Everything.
So it's not like we do one corridor kit.
It can't be modular.
Yeah, it
It's
can't
so
be
many
modular. It has to be
bespoke shapes.
unique.
Yeah.
Nothing on the ship can be modular. Every corridor, every room.
Everything's unique. So the amount of time investment.
I mean, there's some chairs, but even then some of the chairs we couldn't reuse because of the shaping of the rooms.
So like molded something,
Yeah.
right? There's
So like
lots of bespoke
everything.
geometry.
It was.
So yeah, we had a lot of people on there. We had some unfortunate people leaving, which they'd been here quite a while, so we'd lost a lot of sort of that team knowledge and part of rebuilding the team. Obviously, effectively, again, like we said, you don't get new staff members go, hey, welcome to the Banner Merchantman. Here's a completely bespoke thing that does not follow any of our existing art guidelines.
Yep.
And all the time we would have put into that would be just for that ship.
Mm-hmm.
We get no reuse from it. So yes, we will do it again, but personally, I think the time is better spent on other capital ships to get people up to speed, and then we can start putting people back on it.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of love within the team for the Merchantman. I think it's
Except for the picture Mark took of it.
Yeah, apart from Mark's
The
FOV.
FOV on that record.
I'm never going to hear the end of that, am I?
No.
No. Okay.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement there for it. It's just making sure that, again, like we said, that the team's set up to succeed with it and we can actually deliver it to the standards that we expect.
Can you imagine training new people on developing a brand new art style for a ship? Because I generally think Merchantman's going to be one of the hardest ships we ever do, just because of all the additional factors that involve with it, the scale of it, the fact that nothing is really reused. It's all unique molded, all the rooms, all the floors. It's that
It's a different
cool
like,
art style
of modelling as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
In terms of our like actual discipline of like how we make ships.
More organics.
Yeah, it's like more like traditional vehicle modelling, like than it would be like a hard surface weapon.
Yeah, it's hard surface meets organic and this
Yeah,
weird.
it's
Automotive
strange,
You
isn't
know,
it?
style.
so we'd worked on that process and we had a good process in place, and it was just unfortunate that someone chose to go off and chase new adventures, and we wish them the best of luck, and it was a big loss to the team, but that initial kind of pre-production was done and it's there. It's just we just need to get to the point where we can still deliver our current lineup of ships we want to deliver, and we want to be able to do it justice, and it just takes a bit of time.
And keep on top of bug backlog.
Keep the
Tech
backlog, fix
feature
features.
support, because we're constantly supporting other feature teams. Like you've got the tractor. There was a lot of work with the tractor beam. There's a lot of work with the salvage, and there's other features coming online that we have to support, and all of them are time. Lots of time investment from our side to actually implement them in the ships and stuff like the resources.
We didn't get to it. One of the things we discussed about that I want to talk about how we balance those things and stuff like this. We'll do another one of these when it comes time for IAE, probably in November. But there's definitely place for a in-depth discussion of how we balance that workload. The balance between new ships and ships that are already on backlog, balance between giant capital ships or ships that are an entirely unique art style versus those same people at the same time could crank out 4 other ships in the same period of time. How do you balance that? And then of course, all the gameplay balance implications at 197 different vehicles now, and adding more and more, balancing, their capabilities and stuff. So there's a video like this that can just be all about balance, and I think we'll probably pursue that down the line, because it's a conversation I would really like to have, and I think the community would benefit from it. But that does it for today, gentlemen. Thank you for taking the time to be here with me to hang out on at the end of a Friday. I'm going to need your help putting everything back. As you can see, there's a big giant change to the set, so I'm going to need you here for the next 2 or 3 hours just to move furniture and put everything back. You good?
Sure.
Okay. For Star Citizen Live, I'm Jared. That was what button? That was John, and that's Corey, and that's Chris, and that's Ben, and that's Mark, and that's Dan. Enjoy the rest of Invictus. I think there's more promotions to the last weekend and stuff like that. If I had thought about it, I would have looked it up and told you about it, but I'm not good at my job. And I'll see you next week. Tune in for Inside Star Citizen next week. We are talking about the resurrection like a phoenix of Arena Commander next week, and there's a lot of really cool stuff coming. So stay tuned for that. And I think we should just end it there.
We haven't done Corey's introduction of role.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Corey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi.
Ben, come back. Why are you not helping?
Stated himself.
Oh, I forgot to say I fixed that and do it because
No,
people didn't
say
really
it now.
mean to me.
Sorry.
I fixed that Invictus to the one that was funny colours.
Everyone was complaining on Reddit about.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
1,000 upvotes on Reddit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all
Perfect.
visible and it's nice.
I'm going to roll it back though, because everyone's been really mean to me today.
I don't think they're going to believe you.
Chat wasn't mean to you, only us.
I saw someone actually making a remark about my beard that I found quite hurtful.
Is it that it's not impressive enough yet?
Yeah, it's not very good.
I ain't even got
I'm
one,
trying,
bro.
okay.
You know, true story, the very first video I did, the very first episode of Around the Verse back in like 2014, the #1 comment was, his beard has too many colors. And it shook me for like 2 weeks. Like, I'm like, what am I supposed to do about that? I can't help how many colors, so it's just,
Too many colours.
yeah, too many colors. Don't
Did you
don't
dye it?
read no! Don't use, if I had, it'd be a single color. But no, just don't read YouTube comments.
I thought you maybe done like
Yeah.
a rainbow beard or something.
No.
Just like salt and pepper.
It's just his face.
It's just my face.
Bye.
All right. We're really going now, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.